Unsyndicated presents Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian.
What is up Monday night? I know there's one Monday night game on. The game's already over. And there's another one coming. But here we are. We have to talk about what the weekend, what an incredible weekend that was. It really, I mean, Shep, honestly, one of the most memorable weekends in many, many different ways. There's no other way to say that. How are you?
Yeah, good, buddy. I hope you had a good weekend. It was awesome, you know, and obviously culminated with the Lions win over Arizona, getting back to who they were. Michigan really impressive, even though I don't think it's the remedy for success moving forward. Throwing for 32 yards and only 12 passes, and I think 7 of the 9 completions at or behind the line of scrimmage. You're not going to win that way, but loving how they established the run and stayed with it, and kind of punched USC in the mouth. I got to be honest with you, I was really impressed with MSU. I really was. I mean, I know the 3 picks are bothersome, the 4 turnovers overall, that really stinks, but I loved who they were. I loved that they ran the ball hard. They played hard-nosed defense. I thought they were the better team. I know, look, better team doesn't always win. You know that. I thought they were, I think it's something that a lot of people can build on. But Michigan was really impressive. And for the Tigers to go in and beat Baltimore 2 out of 3 and not use Tarek Skubal, who will pitch tomorrow afternoon. They moved that game up now to a 1:10 start because of the bad weather that is looming. Just so much to talk about, right, bud? I mean, a lot of good stuff.
You know what? And let me start with this. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a mess. So now that we got that out of the way, we can move on. They're a mess.
But they did pay their quarterback, Sean. I mean,
that's the most important thing. Let's be honest.
How many quarterbacks do we look at? Look at their contract. I mean, sure, Dak Prescott was really good last year, except in the playoffs. I mean, is that going to age well, bud? Is Trevor Lawrence going to age well? Tua Tagovailoa, is that all these, are these aging? No, those aren't aging well.
I still laugh. The contract that set the market back in the 2017 offseason was Derek Carr. Yes. Literally, Derek Carr. There was a short period of time until Matthew Stafford's agent laughed like the butcher's dog because he knew that there was a lot of meat coming, right? And Derek Carr set the market, not just for quarterbacks, for the National Football League. And if you remember, people were going nuts over Stafford's contract. And I was like, he's going to be the highest paid guy for maybe 2 months because Rodgers is coming up and this is coming up. That's just the way it is. Happy birthday, Eric. Eric has his birthday coming up. So happy birthday to Eric.
Happy birthday, Eric.
But Shep, you're absolutely right. It is. I don't want to say that Trevor Lawrence is a bust. Okay. I'm not going there yet. I think there's a fascination, a fixation on declaring guys busts early, but he isn't who we thought he would be. I mean, this is a guy, Shep, when he was a freshman in college, guys were saying he's the most NFL ready guy right now. Now, he's the most NFL ready guy.
I got to tell you, it's funny you say that. I was just having this conversation with my son. We're watching, and I said, when he came out of Clemson, I really, if I were a general manager, I would have moved heaven and earth to get him. I thought he was going to be an absolute stud. And you're right. He's not a bust. I don't think he's warranted the contract they gave him. He's lost. The Jags have lost the last 7 starts. He's under 500. He doesn't have those great numbers. Hasn't had a great team. I think he can play, but he sure isn't a top 10 Q. And the numbers that he puts on the dotted line, you would think he would have to be a top 10 Q, right?
Yep, that's exactly it. You started with the Tigers. I'm going to go to the Tigers, and I'm going to confess to you what I just told Todd, okay? Mm-hmm. And maybe this is the scar tissue of the damage the Tigers have done to me the last 10 years, and the fact that I don't care what anybody says. this town collectively looked the other way when Al Avila played the role of Nero and lit this franchise on fire. I mean, collectively looked the other way. And then the worst part was everybody pretended like they didn't defend him. And that I'm sorry, that was disgusting. And I took that personal. And Shep, I'm being a little baby right now, but just give me my moment. But with that being said, Shep, am I crazy? Because listen, I would love to sit here and go, this is great, they're in. I don't feel that way yet. It's been an incredible run. You have to give them a tip of the cap. But I'm still sweating out this week, man. That Rays team, I don't care what the record is. They've been scrappy forever and a day. And the White Sox would love nothing more than to just say, yay, we won one game. Hooray, yeah, woo, to try to play the role of spoilers. I'm not writing them in the playoffs just yet, Shep.
Well, Tampa's won 4 straight and 7 of 10 to get to 500. So I understand why you're thinking that way. Tigers do have Skubal going tomorrow, and you would think him he would win that game, although you can't, nothing is guaranteed, obviously. So I'm with you. I think Kevin Cash is one of the best managers in baseball. I don't think it's just, hey, you know what, we're going to breeze through this. They're 4 games back of the final wild card. Don't kid yourself. They feel like, you know what, if we do to Detroit what Detroit did to Kansas City, we're back in the thick of this thing, and then we get Baltimore at the end of the year. I believe they get Baltimore. Chicago's not going to be playing for anything. I mean, they can't wait to get to hell home. You and I covered the Lions when they had I-75 eyes. They have that right now. Okay, so forget that. I think, and people should expect this. I think they're in, and they should be in, and people should expect them to be in because they've played so well, and it's not a small sample size.
No,
this is an extended period of time where they're the best team in baseball, not the American League, but the best team in baseball since August 11th, with the best ERA in baseball. And not to drop names, but I was texting with AJ Hinch earlier this morning, and he told me flat out, he's like, these kids are having fun and they believe in one another. And you and I have talked about that. You can sense that. You understand it. It's absolute. I would have thought the thing that would kind of leave them behind, Sean, would have been, where do you go after Tarek Skubal? Kiter Montero, what's the level of confidence with Kiter Montero? Reese Olson, they were going to hold on a pitch count because of the injury, right? Casey Mize has not been Casey Mize. Where do you go? Somehow, AJ Hinch has been able to do it, and he deserves all the credit in the world. I would have guessed that Stephen Vogt or Matt Quintero, the Royals manager, Indians and Royals, respectively, would have been managers of the year in the American League. AJ Hinch is going to warrant some votes, and rightfully so, don't you think?
Well, I do. I know we talked about that last week. I think just to have them in this position is amazing. And Shep, you know as well as I do, the answer was Bo Brisky every other day. Just start him every other day. And then he can come in and pitch the 6 on the day in between and everything. They are doing it with smoke and mirrors. I'm serious. When you're talking
Tyler
about
Holton.
Staff,
Tyler Holton, too. Yeah.
And you know what? And here's the crazy thing. They're all pitching lights out because, as you mentioned, while we're having fun with these names, okay, the ERA has been sparkling. And I think we talked about it the last time you and I chatted. You have to give a certain pitching coach a hell of a lot of credit for that.
Chris Fetter is so flipping good, Sean. But really that entire pitching staff, coaching staff is really good.
Right.
The fear, you know how you and I used to be a little leery of, oh man, is Ben Johnson going to get stolen from the Lions?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that same queasy feeling about somebody coming in and plucking Chris Fetter, you're not living in reality. Because there's a lot of everybody is recognizing what he's doing.
Tigers bringing up another top guy, Job, another arm in the pen. Amazing they are in this position with 6 games to go. Gordy can't wait to go to Comerica Park Thursday afternoon. How many times has somebody said that in the last few years? Like, I'm not being Shep. I'm not being
outside
funny.
of you and Jack. Outside of you and Jack, nobody.
Oh, I can't wait to go to Comerica. Right.
Especially at the end of the year when it's chilly and windy. Right.
Yeah. More on the Tigers in a second. I want to get your thoughts on Michigan State, certainly Michigan and the Lions yesterday. Shep, I'll say this before we talk about our friends from All About Catering. At no point in time in that second half yesterday did I feel the Lions were going to lose that game.
Agreed.
I don't. Did you? Oh, good. I'm glad you felt that. It was really weird. It's like overnight, all of a sudden, I have a confidence watching this team that I didn't have before. There's a cachet there that I didn't have before. Hey, All About Catering LLC is a full-service caterer, graduations, weddings, bridal showers, corporate events, anything you need catering for, from 25 to 4,000 people. All About Catering can and will take care of you. Customer service and satisfaction is their number one goal, so do not sweat your next big event. Just go to allaboutcateringllc.com today to see their menus and all their 5-star reviews, or call them at 586-731-1398 to get your event started. Eric said, could the Tigers play the Yankees? Eventually down the line. But we don't know what seed the Tigers are going to play. In case you're not aware, the 6th seed would play the division winner, the lowest division winner, which would be number 3, which at this point in time is Houston. So that would be intriguing if they're the 6th seed, or they would play the 4 versus 5 wild card thing, which, again, it could be Baltimore, it could be Kansas City, it could be Minnesota. So there are too many different things, but no, they cannot play the Yankees in the first round. They would have to win a round before they could take on the Yankees.
And I would remind people, Detroit has won 4 out of 6 against Baltimore. Now, I would tell you, their lineup scares the hell out of me. Mm-hmm. I think they're really good, and I appreciate. I think it was it Mike who said they Baltimore finishes with the Yankees. Yeah, I misspoke. It's not Baltimore; it's Boston. Tampa gets Boston. So look, Houston would be interesting from AJ Hinch's perspective. Another really good lineup, right? I know how people feel about the Yankees because of the past. You and I have seen them knock off the Yankees, right? Offensively, scary stuff. Okay. When you got to face 2 guys, one's got over 50 bombs in Judge. Soto's got over 40. Both are locked in. Both are hitting the hell out of the baseball. Be careful. Okay. Let's just take it as it comes, because that's what this team has done. I know it's a boring soundbite from AJ Hinch, but the reason this team has been able to go on this run, and the reason they're so good, besides all the numbers that you and I have already talked about, is their ability to just stay in the moment.
Yep.
Take it that one game. Okay, we win that game. Let's win tomorrow. Okay, we lose tomorrow. It's all right. We can win next. It's simple. It sounds boring. It sounds too simplistic for many people. And it sounds like, somebody who's just got nothing else to say. But it is incredibly true on how he has preached that since the moment he got here in Detroit.
Yeah, Eric, to reiterate, there is no chance the Tigers and Yankees play in the first round. It is the sixth seed, which is the 3rd wild card, taking on the 3rd division winner, which will be Houston, and then the 4 and 5 wild cards playing. And it's a best of 3 at the higher seeds place, all games. Right. So Comerica Park would not have a gate. We have not had a gate since that fateful, crappy Sunday afternoon back in October of 2014, for what it's worth. Shep, let's go to the Lions real quick, and then I'll get your thoughts on what happened in the college football weekend. But it reminds me a lot of last year in this regard. We have not seen their A game. We haven't. I don't know what people are looking for. I really don't. And last week, there were a lot of sky is falling people. I've seen some people kind of downplay going out and beating a good team on the road, and literally controlling the second half of that game. Obviously Cardinals cut it to 7, but they were up by 10 for almost the entirety of the second half. And as I said, at no point in time did I think the Lions were going to lose that game. And yet somehow it almost seems like people are trying to devalue it from what I've heard today. And I can't quite figure that out, man. I just can't.
Yeah, I don't know why you devalue it. It's strange how the NFL and really sports in general work. Arizona absolutely took the Rams out behind the woodshed, right?
Yep.
And yet the Rams pushed the Lions to overtime, right? San Francisco loses this past weekend to the Rams, and everybody thought San Francisco would be the number 1 seed in the NFC. The strange thing about our feeling, I don't want to speak for you, but for me, is Detroit didn't score a point in the second half.
Yeah.
And yet I never was really overly concerned. And
Mm-mm.
that tells you something about how far their defense has come as well. Now, got a little bit of a blow that Marcus Davenport may be out for the year because of the elbow today. It's an area that you and I spoke about before the NFL draft, saying you'd like to shore that up. They need somebody from that edge. I would love to see them make some type of move if possible. Some other teams in the NFC are better than I thought they were going to be, especially Green Bay and Minnesota. But I love the fact that they got back to I know we love the run game for some reason. We think that Detroit, the Lions epitomize the city and the state. And because we're blue collar, you've got to run the football. And I have to remind people that last year, Jared Goff threw the ball the second most in all of football. He had the second most attempts in all of football. They threw the ball a lot last year, everybody. They had the same line except for Zeitler and Jackson. They had the same two running backs. They had the same offensive coordinator. Let's not get too carried away that they've always got to run the football. I like the balance, no doubt. I don't want them necessarily throwing it 55 times. He threw it 46 times against Tampa last year in the playoffs. So the bottom line is moving the ball, right, and getting points. You're right. They haven't played their A game, and yet they're 2-1. And the Monday night game against Seattle should be electric.
Huge. So can't wait. Austin, my biggest fear. Austin, I'm going to go back. Maybe you just joined us late. He said, let's hope the Sox are already the worst team in history before they play us, and we end up blowing it to them that last weekend. I'm telling you, I already confessed to Shep. That's my greatest fear. That just one game, like the White Sox taking one game from the Tigers and forcing a tie between the Tigers and the Royals, or the Tigers and the Twins, which, of course, Shep, I still honestly almost on a daily basis have to remind somebody they lose the tiebreakers to both teams. Like they end up tied. It's the other guy, that's Austin, honestly. And maybe it's not fair to these guys, but I think what this franchise has done to me the last 10 years, so be it. That's the way that I feel.
Right,
Shep, I was watching.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Last year, the third wild card in the American League needed 89 wins.
Mm-hmm.
The Toronto Blue Jays needed 89 wins. Detroit, I believe, has 82 right now. 6 games left. How many wins do you need? Go ahead.
Honest to God, Shep, I would feel safe with 5. I would if you finish 5-1, you lost 1 to the Rays, and you do what you're supposed to do against a shit show like the Sox. Just go sweep them that last weekend. I honestly, I would say 5. And I'm not being funny when I say that, especially when I look at both who the other teams are playing. Now, with that being said, both of those teams are a disaster. Like, what happened to the Royals is I mean, my gosh, this is a collapse for the ages. I mean, here we are talking about what the Tigers have done, rightfully so. I'm not saying we shouldn't. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine being the Royals? I mean, my goodness gracious, what a disaster that is.
It's incredible what has happened there, especially since they have, you could argue, one of the best leaders in baseball in Salvador Perez.
Yep.
And they definitely have one of the best players in all of baseball in Bobby Witt Jr., don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the Royals have gone through this month-long slump, Sean. For as good as it has been, the Royals have been equally as bad. I think about this. I believe it was August 27th. They beat Cleveland. It was their third straight win over the Guardians. And Kansas City was in a first-place tie in the AL Central.
Yep.
Okay? They were in a playoff spot by 6.5 games. I think at that point, it wasn't quite as bad, but I know on August 10th, Detroit's playoff percentage was like 0.2%, and now it's at 71%.
It's incredible.
But then they go, I think they go 7-16 over the next 23-game stretch. And during that time, Detroit has obviously gotten super hot. And that's where you have it right now. It's
7
amazing,
straight
and I can't imagine that. Yeah, 7 straight.
7
Yep.
straight losses, Shep. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, and you're right. The Tigers have a better playoff chance right now than both of them, both the Royals and the Twins. It's insane how this has happened, you know?
Yeah, it's incredible, and I think I would guess we always talk about pressure, right? And you and I both have agreed that pressure is self-induced. The Tigers are playing really loose.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're playing. I hate to say just to have fun because the young guys, what Jace Young has brought and Trey Sweeney has brought and Dylan Dingler has brought and Parker Meadows and those guys. Maybe they're too young to know what they're in for, but I love the attitude. It feels like from a distance, Kansas City and Minnesota are playing really tight.
Yeah.
If you watch them play, they just do not have that loose feel like they had even when they were losing earlier, like early August or in July. They were still playing good ball, but they just they feel like they look really stiff right now to me.
Yeah. I want to get there was somebody made a comment about Minnesota. Shep, I don't know how much you saw that game yesterday. I want to get your take, but first let's talk about the Wealth Advantage Group. And if you're ready to take advantage of your financial future, well then look no further than the Wealth Advantage Group, located in historic downtown Northville and owned by two brothers, the Handsome brothers right there, with over 20 years of industry experience. They understand that your financial goals are as unique as you are, and that's why they offer personalized expert guidance to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning. Now, whether you're saving for retirement, getting ready to sell your company, already in retirement, they can help guide you through every step of your financial journey. They work with clients throughout all stages of life, and they have clients in over 20 different states. The investment world, it is a complex one. So if you're ready to start taking your finances more seriously, it might be time to work with the experts. Reach out to the guys at the Wealth Advantage Group. They do a great job. They're great guys. I vouch for them totally. 248-773-8574. That's 248-773-8574, or visit their website at www.thewealthadv.com. Shep, I like watching the JV before the Lions play. When I was a kid, it always seemed to me like the Lions were the 1:00 game, and that was always the JV game. Lions, Bucks, and okay, there's the JV game. And then at 4:00, you had the varsity game, and it might be Dallas and Washington. It might be, back when that was a big thing. It might be Frisco and the Rams, whatever the case may be. So yesterday I was watching the JV beforehand. Wink, wink, nod, nod. We will be joined by Shep in just a moment. And it was a situation where David, I want to go back to what David said. David, Minnesota is hot, and so far Darnold is playing very, very well. I don't know how sustainable it is, okay? I don't. But I know this. That looks like a pretty good football team right now. Like, that really looks like a pretty good football team right now, that Minnesota Viking team. And obviously Sam Darnold is doing some things, but David, and you tell me, I thought defensively, they jumped out to me. I mean, that's CJ Stroud, and that's the Houston Texans. And to me, I was sitting there watching this going, okay, Texans are going to come back. And Minnesota really didn't let them off the mat. And that's the kind of stuff that jumps out to me, man. That's the kind of stuff where I sit back and go, okay, yeah, maybe they're legitimate. And I'm going to say it again. Shep touched on it earlier. Yes, I want balance. Yes, I want a run game. All of that stuff, okay? You guys, you got to understand what the league is today. And I don't hear too many people arguing with me anymore. 10 years ago, people used to argue this with me. You know what the league is today? What can our quarterback do to you, and how can the opposition get to your quarterback? That's the National Football League today, man. How can they make the opposition's quarterback miserable? Yes, you want balance. Yes, you want a good defense, all that stuff. But more often than not, it's the pretty lights. That's what the NFL's going for, man. That's what they want. And you know what? Again, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, the Vikings are our biggest threat in the division. I'm not saying that by a long shot. But you know what I'm doing? I'm giving credit to where credit is due. I'm glad that you brought that up, David. It's something to keep an eye on. We'll find out how legitimate they are. They've got a pretty tough slate coming up, right? So we'll find out how legitimate the Vikings are. But right now, I'm a big give credit where credit is due. If somebody's doing the job, you give the tip of the cap until they aren't, right? We'll wait and see how that plays out. But, and obviously, I mean, all the people that thought that Green Bay was going to fall behind, I mean, what a strange world we live in, right? You got Malik looking like a legitimate quarterback. Give him his flowers. No doubt about that. You have Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, man. Huh? What are we talking about here? You got a few quarterbacks in the league that people, kind of left for dead a few years ago. Some of your comments as well. What do you guys think of the bullpen days starting pitching? Kirk, we talked on that earlier. It is phenomenal. And you can't say enough about how the Tigers are doing it right now. You can't. It's almost like they stumbled upon this by accident out of necessity. Well, I guess we gotta fire Bo Brisky out there 7 days in a row. Steve said, how many of the young kids are a product of Avila versus Harris? Honest question. I don't know the answer. A lot of them are Avila guys. Shep, I mean, I can, factually stating a lot of what is happening right now with the Tigers are Avila guys. Now, I've unfortunately, and Steve, I'm not insinuating that you're one of them. I've unfortunately heard a lot of Al Avila revisionist history, which I will have none of that. I will tolerate absolutely none of that. But Shep, let's give credit where credit is due. A lot of these guys that are up with the ball club and producing right now are Al Avila guys. And this is where I kindly remind people that Matt Millen drafted Calvin Johnson. And you can stuff that as far as you can up your ass if you want to give Al Avila any credit. He was a disaster. All right, we'll move on.
Yeah, he was, especially with certain trades and certain signings. But people are all excited about Jackson Jobe. He did draft him. He drafted Riley Green. He drafted Parker Meadows. He drafted Spencer Torkelson. We went over this. Drafted Dylan Dingler, right? Made the trade for Jake Rogers. Didn't like it one damn bit, right? Drafted Tarek Skubal. A lot of guys drafted. I think it's more about what Ryan Garko and his staff have done, Sean,
Sure.
And how they've developed these guys. And we would remind people, too, that, I mean, Al Avila did bring in A.J. Hinch and let him bring in his guys, right? He brought in his guys at Chris Fetter. It took a while for them to settle on the type of coaches that they truly wanted. They started with guys like Chip Hale, for example, who went on to be the head coach at Arizona and things like that, the University of Arizona. But I don't want to give Al Avila, credit for what they've done this year, because I think it's more about the development of the players at the young the younger ages and the lower rungs, if you will. But he did buy into the belief of what A.J. Hinch and Ryan Garko were stressing. And that is keeping some of those young guys longer in the minor leagues, giving them a chance to fail as well as succeed and do some things. Where Al Avila falls short for everybody. You know it. It's the J.D. Martinez trade. It's the Justin Verlander trade. It's rushing Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, signing Javier Baez, and doing some other things that he was associated with that Tiger fans have every right to be upset about.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you reminded people, but because he did do some good things. There are some general managers who've done some good things. Not all of them are completely failed experiments if they don't win right away. Matt Millen was, okay? Bob Quinn was. So you want to give him credit for Calvin Johnson, as you mentioned, give Bob Quinn credit for Frank Ragnow. It's a little different story in baseball, and I think Al Avila deserves a little bit of credit for some of the young guys that he saw potential in. He just didn't get that potential out of them like Ryan Garko and his staff and player development have.
Yeah, and Steve, again, that wasn't directed at you. I've seen some revisionist history out there, but I refuse to be one of those guys that I detest. Give the man some credit. He did bring some talent in here, okay? And now Unfortunately, in the early part of his tenure, some of those magical, mythical names that we heard of weren't exactly developed, and it took a little bit longer, as we all know.
Yeah.
Shep, before you went away, I was talking about the Vikings. I don't know if you saw the Vikings, but David brought up a good point. He said they play fast, they keep it in front of them. At least they did yesterday. I'm not sitting there saying be afraid of the Vikings. I'm not sitting there saying the Vikings are the number 2 threat in the division, anything like that. I am giving a tip of the cap. They look pretty darn good. I saw them yesterday, and they look pretty darn good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I watched them yesterday. I thought they looked really good too. I hate taking away accomplishments from players and teams. Okay, so what Minnesota has done at 3-0, really impressive. They beat a Dallas team. I always here's what I need some help with. I'll use Boston College as an example. They were a good team after they beat Florida State. Now I look back and I go, man, they beat Florida State's not very good, right? I mean, they started 0-3. You beat Dallas, and you're like, wow, that's a good win. You know, Minnesota, and didn't just beat them. I mean, they manhandled them. That's a pretty good win. Now, does Dallas look all that great to you? I mean, they've got problems on the sideline with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. The hot seat is turned up a little bit more on Mike McCarthy. I'm not sure how much of a quality win that is. I'm not saying I don't know anything about Minnesota yet. I'm not come to a conclusion. On the other hand, I want to give them credit. I'll give them credit. They do not scare me like maybe San Francisco would have scared me a year ago. I don't care if Detroit loses to them one out of the 2 times they play them. I still think Detroit is the best team in this league. I think they're the best team in the conference. If they stay healthy, I think they are better than Minnesota and every other team I've seen so far in the NFC.
Yeah. Nope. I feel the exact same way. Hey, very quickly, let me tell you about our friends at Legacy Partners. Did you know that thousands of Metro Detroiters have already called Legacy Partners to get help with their home and auto insurance? Our friends at Legacy are one of Southeast Michigan's top independent insurance agents and provide a full-service, one-stop solution for all of your insurance needs, personal and business, large and small. Legacy has helped our listeners by fixing mistakes other agents have made, asking the right questions to get the right coverage put in place to properly protect you, and help save you some money. We all need a little bit of that today. Chances are, if you haven't checked your policies in the last year, you're paying too much and you could be underinsured. So what are you waiting for? Give Legacy Partners a chance to help with your home, your cars, life insurance, Medicare enrollment, or your business insurance needs. Call them today, 586-209-4106, or make sure to check out legacypartnersins.com to get started with your new quotes. Shep, you touched on this at the beginning of the show, and I've said this for years, and I'll continue to say it. You never, ever, ever apologize for a win, ever.
Nope.
I'm serious. Nope. Michigan fans, hear me out. This is not like a passive-aggressive shot, anything like that. If you know me, this has been my constant refrain. Never apologize for a win.
No way.
You beat
It's too hard to win, man.
Right.
It's too hard to win consistently. I mean, I will say this, in certain losses, not that you love it, but you can feel good about maybe where your team might be headed, depending on what happens the next week. I'll give you an example. Michigan State at Boston College. I thought Michigan State looked really good. I mean, I know the turnovers are part of it. I hate that. Didn't like the 4, didn't like the back-to-back either, and didn't like the last drive turnover and the interception. And the young man, Aiden Childs, he's got to do a better job in reading defenses. But I mean, the way they played, okay, you can tell Jonathan Smith has installed something in this team that has basically said, this is how we're going to have to win this year. And I'm convinced that's the right way for this team. So I'm pretty excited about them, even though they lost. Now, help me with what Tim has texted us or gotten in the chat about. Blowhards from Chicago are still bragging about their super quarterback and that team that was going to go 17-0. I have not been impressed with Caleb Williams at all.
How quarterback struggling, Shep. What a strange concept.
I know. And I wouldn't give up on him, right? But here's what happens, and I think you can vouch for this. We spent, Hard Knocks included, we spent all this time in the offseason with all the national media pumping the tires of one guy. And if that guy doesn't reach a certain platitude that everybody thinks they should reach, even though we know it's really hard, then he's a disappointment. He has not looked good in his first 3 starts. I'm sure he'll look better. The game looks faster than he was used to, obviously. It shows you how tough the position is. I think he was set up to be torn down by the national media. I didn't expect him to be Mr. Number 1 in fantasy football and the number 1 quarterback in the NFC right out of the gate.
Yeah, no, nor did I. I want to go back to what you said about Childs, okay?
Yeah.
I don't like some of his decisions. I thought the pass with 47 seconds left was moronic. That stuff's correctable. I'm not worried about it. That's a young kid trying to be heroic. What scares me a little bit, okay? And Shep, I don't know how much of the game you saw. Him missing guys running amok down the field. That scared me. I'm not going to lie. I see the talent. I see the ability there. I remind people he's still 19. You're going to make dumb mistakes. You're going to try to do too much. He did not have to throw that ball with 47 seconds left. Shep, I'm not going to lie, and you know what side of the fence I sit on. I'm a little concerned about him missing some of those open receivers in the middle of the field, and not just missing them. That's a little disconcerting to me.
Yeah, I think it's a fair concern. I mean, granted, they played without 2 of their best receivers. I personally, we're talking about 3 starts in this young man's career.
Right.
I'm not going to freak out about it.
Right.
I would be. I think it could be correctable. Coaches would know that better than I would. I'm a little bit more worried about him throwing into double coverage and making poor decisions. And I think, he's got the talent. You could tell. And I don't care how strong a guy's arm is. I'm talking about the way he throws. I like the way he throws. So we'll see about that. It's going to be a hell of a challenge against Ohio State. I'm scared to death about that because, Ohio State's going to force Aiden Childs to beat him. That's what they're going to do. They don't give a rat's tail about the running game. They're like, go ahead. You want to try to beat us? Fire it up. Let's see. I think he's going to be okay, Sean. I really do.
I do.
I like their attitude.
Listen, in the way that I look at it, there's 2 ways to look at this. I thought that they would be 3-1 going into the Ohio State game, and there's not a snowball's chance in hell I'm going up there for this game. I'm just not. I'm not going to be sitting in. Do you think I want to sit there in person and watch a curb stomping? I'll pass. Thanks. But with that being said, Shep, I thought they'd be 3-1 at this point in time. I think the frustrating thing for me is how close they were to being 4-0.
Right.
And that was a woulda, coulda, shoulda, didn't game. And that's what's frustrating to me. It's not going to listen 6-6, maybe 7-5, something like that. I'll take it, especially with the schedule they have, with all the adversity that they had last year. Onto the Michigan thing, and you touched on something at the beginning of the show. Man, I couldn't agree with you more. Props. Apologize to nobody. You beat number 11 in the nation. That is not a sustainable model for success for the rest of the season. If that's how you're going to roll the rest of the season, all the people that think you're going to have 4, dare I say 5 losses, I think they're going to be proven correct by the end of the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. But for someone like Austin to say Michigan's win only proved one thing, USC's still soft on D, didn't say that in the previous 2 games. Granted, it wasn't a Michigan team. I thought Michigan's defense was really good because I thought Moss was going to have his way with their defense. I really did. He showed me something. I mean, I thought they showed the type of toughness that we were expecting from Michigan going into the season. You should definitely be afraid of their quarterback situation. If you weren't already, you should be definitely afraid. You've got to be able to have a balance against Big Ten teams moving forward. Maybe you can get away with it against Minnesota, right? Eventually, maybe, I don't know, Illinois looked pretty good first 3 weeks. Ohio State will not tolerate this stuff. Oregon won't tolerate this stuff. I doubt Washington will either. And I don't think Michigan State will either. Doesn't mean I'm going to think they're going to lose those games, but they better find a way to move the ball downfield. They're not going to be able to just run the ball the entire day against teams like that. They're just not going to be able to do that.
And Shep, this is why I say 4 or 5, because I think what you just said, and you bring Minnesota in the equation, what we didn't factor on is Illinois is probably better than any of us thought. Indiana certainly has been off to a better start. So
Yeah.
if you were of that mindset that they were going to lose to Ohio State, that they were going to lose to Oregon, and I think most Michigan fans were, in fairness, with all the losses that they had, I think that's kind of are they going to mix in one more? Well, we'll wait and see how that works itself out. But hey, like I said, you never, ever, ever apologize for a win. And for anybody to try to poo-poo that, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. You beat USC, man. Period. End of story. Welcome to the Big Ten, USC. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, same. I'm just look. I try to take away the rankings of what teams are. Okay, I look at who they played and how they've looked doing it. And Oregon looked really good last week against Oregon State. They sure didn't look great in the first 2 games. Okay, definitely not against Idaho. And then they barely beat Boise State, I believe, a field goal. I mean, they scored 37 points or whatever, but they barely beat them. I'm not going to chalk that up automatically to a Michigan loss, because I think a lot of people were chalking up a Michigan loss automatically to Oregon because of the way the Wolverines looked against Texas. And I understand it, because Texas, but understand this, Texas is really flipping good. Illinois, okay. I mean, who have they beaten? I mean, they just beat Nebraska. So I'll give them that. Yeah, I'll give them that. I just don't know yet, Sean. I mean, they got to go to Penn State next.
Huh? Raiola's kid, Dom's kid's Mahomes. Let's be honest, right?
Well, yeah. You're going to fight me on that? Yeah. No. I mean, they've beaten Central Michigan and Eastern Illinois as part of their schedule. They've got to go to Penn State. That'll tell you a little bit more about them, I think. So let's just wait and see what happens in this regard. I know this. Michigan fans will be much more convinced of their team if they can throw the ball a little bit better and absolutely steamroll Minnesota, because you should. You're at home. Minnesota is less than. You have better coaches than they have. PJ Fleck is highly overrated. He's already in his 8th year, and what has he done there besides row a flipping boat? So forget it, okay? Blow them out. Convince people that, you know what, we can do things other than run the football, and maybe more believers. Then you got to go to Washington. And if you think you're just going to be able to run on Washington and win, you're nuts. It's not going to happen.
Positive's birthday. Happy birthday, pal. Mr. Positive. Tim said, do you know where Childs transferred from? Oregon State. And Tim, I know you love the Stars. You and I have had conversations about the Stars before. 4-star guy, both as a transfer and into high school, for what it's worth. Michigan's quarterback issues, it's hardly unique. Seen it fairly often. Even in the back of Bo's days, guys like Michael Taylor and Demetrius Brown. Hell, I still remember Rick Leach 1 for 15 game against Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. I will say this. If you compare Alex Orji to the guys that you just mentioned, that's on you. I'm not going there. That's
what do you mean it's not unique? They've had some excellent quarterbacks come out. And look, it's fine if you don't like them. All right. It's fine if you think they lucked into a win. That's fine. Don't give me this crap that it's unique. They've had some excellent quarterbacks in the history of Michigan football. And if you don't know that, then just go look it up and see some of the names. And I don't even have to bring up the one guy, okay? But all the other ones, they're pretty flipping good.
I remember
all Big Ten. Or what's that?
No, I remember, to Tim's point, and I'm gonna fact check myself right here. But before Elvis Gerback came in, and that was '89, and he ended up starting as a freshman. I remember Demetrius Brown and Taylor. Remember, they had the tandem, and the one could run and the other could throw, et cetera, et cetera. And what was it? The '88 team? I think they went 8-4 or something like that. He can't throw.
Yeah.
Like honest right now, maybe it's developed. Maybe, there's a switch and Alex Orji all of a sudden is going to obtain the ability to throw. He can't throw right now. And when you're talking about, and I remember the tandem that you speak of, when you're talking about that tandem, at least one of them could throw. And sure, Rick Leach may have had a bad, what did he bring up? The Orange Bowl game? Rick Leach was a pretty good quarterback.
Okay. Whatever.
He's a pretty good quarterback.
He finished top 5 in the Heisman. Didn't he finish top 5 in the Heisman like twice?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, he's a 4-year starter, for crying out loud. I mean, give me a break, man. I mean, he just because you're not an NFL quarterback doesn't mean you weren't a really good college quarterback. Right. There is the possibility of having that,
Yeah. Tim said, how can it? Tim said, Shep, that's not what Sean believes. How can a program like Michigan have such bad quarterbacks? He said, Tim, let me say it as clear as I can for you. You ready? This time you're right. You're right. You're not misconstruing something I said or changing your argument. This time you're right. Do you want me to repeat it for you? It is mind-boggling to me that the University of Michigan, the defending national champion, has these two guys at quarterback. There are 100 different quarterbacks at places all over the country that you could have legitimately called and said, would you like to be on national TV every week, Slugger? And Tim, I said this to you before, and this is where you get yourself in trouble. You agreed with me, but then tried to spin it into something else. I don't know how any living, breathing organism couldn't agree with that. If Alex Orji is the best you could do, somebody along the line failed.
Yeah, they dropped the ball. No doubt.
Yep. So, Shep, you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, you and I have said that. I mean, that is not, I don't think that's earth shattering by any stretch. And I think most Michigan fans would agree with it, but I totally disagree. It's totally debunked that Michigan has had this problem at quarterbacks when they've had borderline great quarterbacks. Okay. We're not talking about John O'Corn here, Sean. We're talking about guys who've been really, really good. And the program, I think, for the most part, has had some of the best quarterbacks the Big Ten has ever had.
As David said, the staff is to blame. They knew the roster for the last 2 years. Absolutely.
For sure.
In January, you knew J.J. McCarthy was leaving.
Right.
You saw the quarterback room, and somebody said, we'll be fine. Right. Alex Orji's got this.
Yeah.
If anything, Tim, I don't think you're hearing me. It's a compliment of what Michigan is. Call the kid at UCF. Hey, man, you want to come start at Michigan? You're the best quarterback we have right now. You can start in Michigan, be on national TV every week, showcase your talent to everybody. You in? Who's going to say no to that, right?
And by the way, there's nothing to be ashamed of for doing that. Ohio State did it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
They went, hey, Kansas State, hi, we'd love that quarterback. Sure, let's go. You wouldn't even have minded the Ohio State kid who started against you last year and bring him in.
Yep.
I agree with you. I don't want to say it's irresponsible, but at some point last year, I don't know when, but there had to be something that clicked with the entire staff that said, J.J. McCarthy's one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Mm-hmm.
We better be prepared for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying to go get Arch Manning and get a kid who's willing to sit a couple of years behind a starter, but you got to get a guy who says, hey, you want to come in and compete for a job. If you don't win it this year and McCarthy happens to come back, it's going to be yours in 2 years, right? Because that cupboard is not stocked full of Jif peanut butter right now, Sean. There's not a lot of really good stuff that you can stick your fingers in.
No. As David said, 120%, they should have been in the portal after the national championship game. What was it, JJ? Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it a week after the national championship game when he announced? You had literally since the third week of January. Yeah. I'm almost positive, Shep. You had, you know what? I'm going to fact check myself. But you had for literally the third week of January. Mm-hmm. And if you say, well, they thought that they had something that they don't have, well, that's still on the coaching staff. If you couldn't see that this guy's incapable of throwing the football, that's also on you because he can't throw the football. Right. I mean, I'm not being mean, Shep. That's the truth. The guy can't throw. January 14th. Wow, even earlier. Thank you, appreciate it.
So somebody brings up, Ohio State top 3 classes. Sure. But if they're top 3 classes, why do they need Will Howard this year? Why did they need who was it? Kyle McCord the year before?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they have top 3 classes all the time, I know we look back at C.J. Stroud. I get it, and some of the really good quarterbacks they've had, and they've had some good ones, right? I mean, Stroud for a couple of years, but they've used the formula to their advantage the last couple of years, and rightfully so. That's exactly what should have been done in today's day and age for what you would be considered perennial power programs. If you'll allow me to use that term with Michigan over the last 5 years, I think it's appropriate. There's really no excuse for you not to be able to get a quality QB to at least compete with some of the QBs you currently have on your roster.
And to that point, Tim said going after Arch Manning would put U of M on probation. I think Shep was saying you don't necessarily have to go after an Arch Manning.
Right. That's what I said. Yeah.
You could get the kid from San Jose State who's lighting it up right now.
Mm-hmm.
You could get the kid from UCF that's lighting it up right now. Trust me when I say this, and Shep, I know you know this every bit as much as I do. There are 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the MAC conference every year who are going to get a serious look at the next level every single year. And now the game's different. You could call the factory. Shout out Shep. You could call the factory and say, "Hey, you're 7 miles away, man. You know what? We think you have Big Ten talent. Why don't you come play for the defending national champions? Why don't you come and be on national TV every single week?"
I think that depends. I mean, that would depend. Eastern hasn't had a guy who you could do that with.
No, but you understand the argument.
I do. Look, it happened with Illinois. They went and took the kid from Ball State who played high school ball at Bloomfield Hills and ended up being a pretty good quarterback for Illinois for that 1 year. I'm not saying that that's the route to go. I'm just saying with what you have and what you've accomplished, especially recently, I would guess there's a lot of kids who would love that letter, that phone call, that email, that knock on the door that says, "Would you consider us?" Now, maybe that's happened and it just didn't come to fruition. I'd be surprised at that. I just can't believe they've been put themselves in this situation. They're going to have to deal with it all season long, period.
Yeah, it is weird. And so, I mean, Tim, again, you seem hung up on this. I know why. You had a bad take and you're trying to overcome it, and that's okay. Happens to all of us. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're a Michigan fan. I'm not. If you can't acknowledge that, it is 99.9% of Michigan fans are acknowledging it.
Yeah.
I can't help you. I mean, they dropped the ball, period, end of story. Warren wasn't ready. Boy, did he look bad. And I mean, Alex Orgian, what do you want me to say?
Yeah. And then the freshman Davis, I don't know.
Maybe he shows us something as the season progresses and all that stuff. But all I can do is judge it based on what I've seen so far. He can't throw.
Yeah, and he couldn't beat out Davis Warren to start the year, which should be probably a little shocking to a lot of people. And look, the freshman kid, Davis, I mean, I don't like the way he throws it all. Okay. I don't know if you've seen him. This is a must. We'll have to go into the portal to get somebody for next year. They didn't do it this year. They should have gotten somebody for next year for sure. I mean, don't tell me there isn't a kid like that kid in Mississippi, Dart, who can go out there and sling it. There's got to be somebody who would love to go and play at the University of Michigan and kind of continue that tradition. At least that's my belief.
And Shep, as I said, that is a compliment to the university, that the University of Michigan is the type of place that could go and say, we want to pluck you right now, and we can pluck you right now. How would you who wouldn't want to go play for the defending national champion, right? On national television. Absolutely. That's tip of the cap, man. All right, we got to get out of here in a second. Let me tell you about Lindsay Broadwell. When it's time to get yourself a new house, whether you're buying, selling, or both, you need to contact the right agent. Who do we recommend? There she is, Lindsay Broadwell. Your house is probably the biggest investment you'll ever make, and that's why you need a pro. Lindsay grew up on the mean streets in Northville and has expanded her team all over Southeast Michigan. She's an expert in all facets of the business. And when it's time to move, our friend Lindsay and her team will make sure you get the most out of your house and everything goes smoothly when finding your new home. Buyer, seller, even first-time buyers, make sure you contact Lindsay at BroadwellHomes.com. She'll help you with everything from start to close. Licensed realtor at Real Broker LLC. Start your search today at BroadwellHomes.com. Georgia, Alabama, Saturday night. I'm with you, David. I'm sorry. I still get pumped up over that stuff, man.
You should. Me too.
You know what? It was great seeing USC in Michigan. I'm a traditionalist, man. That was great to see that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Amen.
All right,
I'm looking for. I know you're not going for to Michigan State, Ohio State Saturday. It'll be a hell of a litmus test for MSU. Let's go.
Absolutely. No way. Looking forward to it. I mean, let's see what happens. But yeah, I don't want to see it in person. All right.
We'll talk about it a week from today.
Yeah. Well, we'll get back together Thursday too, right, buddy? Thursday, 11 a.m. Yeah, you cool?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
God bless you. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Right. Thanks, Todd. See you guys.
Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song, incidental music, and related sound effects are from Still Alive by Anti-Ghost. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.